A very, very, very wonderful good evening to you. One singer sang, I am back again, bam bam. I am back again. It is me, Chidima Ihadindeme. You can also know me as Adango Bala Ogeniwanyo, my that golden voice on radio. And I'm pleased to welcome you to Bros Radio 98.9 FM Owerri. To this another wonderful segment of this discussion we had yesterday. We're going to have another one today. And here in the studio also, we have two wonderful personalities that are here. And I'm going to welcome them to the show. I have with me here a wonderful personality known as Udochukwu. Udochukwu, sir, you're welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
All right. And then he is the director of
Citizens Platform.
Also, I have a wonderful woman here, a woman of dignity or substance. May I please, you're welcome to this show. Please.
Thank you. I am Ogechike. Thank you for having me. Executive Director, Usai Foundation, and I'm also a gender advocate.
Thank you so much. All right, today it's another interesting edition of this our discussion. And you know what is wonderful about today is that you listening to us, you're going to be part of this program. Yesterday we discussed a wonderful topic, and today we're going to discuss another one. We're looking at advancing social inclusion through a transparent government. Advancing social inclusion through a transparent government. And good thing you're going to be part of the show. That is, you can call in to your view, you can call in to ask your question, you can call in to contribute to this discussion here. It's a discussion that you're meant to participate. All right, before we dive into the discussion proper, I am picking two prominent terms in this topic, and I can see social inclusion, I can also see transparent government. We're going to dissect them so that you listening to us will digest it. We'll dissect and you digest, and then you can be able to make your impact or your contribution on this discussion today. And remember, we are live on Bus Radio 98.9 FM, that is on our Facebook, and also on YouTube, Bus Radio 98.9 FM Owerri. So you can all log in here to see us and to also drop your comment. All right, I'm starting with you, sir. Please, can we have a brief knowledge of what it is to be socially included?
Okay, social inclusion in a layman's term is a system that accommodates, that considers every member of that system's voice or contribution. If it is not inclusive, then it is not sustainable. Social inclusion requires a system to have a framework where people can make their contributions on how they are governed, where the system or those in authority can also get a feedback on how the policies and programs of government, for instance, affects them. And it is not just to hear from them, it is also to act in their best interest. So when they complain that something is not good, the government should have no other option but to listen and act accordingly, because what we practice is participatory democracy. Unless people actively participate, then it is not democratic. So democracy is built on the system that recognizes and not just recognizes, that protects people's right to choose how they are governed, who governs them, and what policies government implements on their behalf.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Ma'am Ogechi, you could just add something to that.
Yes, just like my colleague said, it's all about a process to improve the terms and conditions on which individuals and groups participate in a society, thereby leaving no one behind. Just like the UN said, you don't leave anybody behind, irrespective of their religion, irrespective of their status in the society, irrespective of their gender. So it's just a process. Everybody must be heard, trying to find out, we call it needs assessment. What do the people need? That word people is everybody, is inclusive, including persons with disabilities. Ordinarily we don't even remember them. You understand?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, you can agree with me that in every country, you will find out that a particular group are being marginalized. They are confronted with barriers that could be economic, social, or political that bars them from participating actively. And this group, they could be stigmatized. It could be based on religion. It could be based on the perception people have about them. And another thing, this kind of people can be classified to be not included in politics based on their gender or
Yeah.
their age or maybe their race sometimes. So in every state you have people that are not included in politics. So that is why we are here today, to find out how we are going to educate them to be part of that governance. All right. Okay, you listening to us at this very point in time, do you think some set of persons are being marginalized in our own country called Nigeria? Do you think you're not allowed to air your view? Do you think you're not getting the quota you're supposed to get from the country or the government that is on? So you're free to be part of this program to contribute your quota. And I will not waste much time. I'm going to open the phone line in case you're going to call in. We have our phone lines to be 090-922-29922. I take it again, 090-922-29922. Or you can call us in on 091-226-77989. Like I rightly pointed out before we started discussing the first term, I told you we have two outstanding terms, that is social inclusion and then transparency government. So can we talk about transparency government? How do we say a government is transparent?
Transparency, I think, is the very foundation upon sustainable development is built. If it is not transparent enough, it is corrupt, and there's no middle ground. It's either you're transparent or you're very corrupt. When we say transparency in governance, for instance, there's in public procurement, there's what we call due process. Before you award contract or procure goods or services, there are processes. You have to advertise the project. You have to, call for bidding, open bidding. You have to make it as far as transparent as possible, so that the public, especially those who have the competence, will apply, and those for which those projects are built will follow it up. So when we don't see those processes and suddenly we see contracts being awarded and people celebrate, government had built 20 kilometers of road, civil societies do not just celebrate such contracts. We demand details. Who is the contractor? What are the processes? What is the duration of the contract? For how much was it awarded? What is the relationship between the contractor and those who awarded the contract? These are things we demand, answers for, so that people can track the projects the government is doing on their behalf. When it comes to budget implementation, before you even decide what you want to do for the people, as she earlier said, need assessment. You must engage the people you are serving. You must ask them what they need. The process that determines what goes in where must be very, very transparent, so that we don't get what we now see, where somebody who is just a job seeker can just marry the daughter of a governor and the next day he's super rich. This is the kind of things we see in our society. Only politicians are so rich. Every community in Imo State, the richest people there now are politicians,
Yes.
because that's the only business that thrives
Easiest
here.
means of getting
If
money.
the system is transparent enough, we can't continue to see a commissioner who earns maybe 850,000 as monthly take home building houses everywhere. It is because it is not transparent, so they get away with all kinds of fraud they're committing, and the citizens seem to lack the capacity to engage the process. And that's why I think we have to mention this public awareness is sponsored by CISLAC and Ford Foundation through Alliances for Africa. It is very, very important, because democracy is built on well-informed, well-educated citizens, and it is this public education that can actually guarantee a sustainable and effective and efficient democracy for all of us.
All right, that's quite expatiated. All right, you could agree with me that in one of the goals 16 of the Sustainable Development Goal globally, the point 16 pointed out that it is nice for people to be included into governance, and if they do that, it promotes peaceful and inclusive society that calls for sustainable development. So that is that sustainable development inclusion, it's sustainable development, sorry. And what do you think could be the root cause, since we all know that if the masses are included into governance, that it will lead to sustainable development? Now, what do you think is the root cause whereby people are being excluded in governance?
Okay, like Udo rightly said, transparency, first of all, is a core principle for good governance for every society. It's a core principle. Now, there are so many factors that are determinants when you talk about exclusion. We know about gender, we know about stereotype, we know about health status of people, also social status. We also know about, have I mentioned religion? These are some of the factors that fuel exclusion in a society. Take, for instance, women are excluded. In Imo State, we don't have any house rep in Imo State.
Female.
That is a female?
Yes, female house rep. You understand?
House of Assembly.
House of Assembly. Yeah? And then, looking at what we have believed so far, talking about Sustainable Development Goal, is a goal 5, gender equality. Part of the reason why women are not included is stereotype. They said, what can women do? Without understanding that people have built capacities over time. Look at our own Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She's a female, and she's ruling the world in World Trade Organization. And we're here talking about transparency and inclusion. And like Udo also said, most people are not aware of their rights. That's part of what we are doing today, thanks to Alliances for Africa. When people know their rights, they should be able to hold government accountable. Here in Imo State, everybody is now gearing up for election. We are not just interested in party. We are interested in personality. What can you do for the people? I was discussing with my colleague, and in her own their community, there is this hospital that is dilapidated and is abandoned, and somebody is coming out for political engagement, and the person says, I will build hospital. No, there are hospitals that are existing. So when we're talking about inclusivity, these political members, candidates should go down to the grassroots, find out the voices of the minorities. What do they actually want? So, because if we are talking about sustainable development goal without accountability, without transparency, we are not going anywhere. Transparency is a simple thing. It's just to be easily seen and accessible. You want to do this thing, call for stakeholders meeting, engage the people, and let the stakeholders, let everybody be represented, even the market women out there. Look at our fuel prices has gone up, and it's taking ripple effects. The market woman out there needs to transport her goods to the market. She's also affected by this exclusion we are talking about. You understand?
Yes.
And that is why the UN says leaving no one behind. That no one is 100% affirmative action for inclusion. So some of the factors again is talking about religion. Whether we like it or not, we have freedom of religion in our constitution. Allow people to express whoever they want to serve or whoever they want to. We have a major religion, we have Muslim, we have Christianity. I don't have to be unkind to a Muslim brother just because I'm a Christian and he's a Muslim. You understand? No. If there are engagements and somebody must be represented and the person is invited, you hear the person's opinion and find out what are the things that they need in their Muslim community. That is part of it. So, but if we say, because my religion is not his religion, and then I come up at a decision-making table, I don't include him, how am I going to feel? Meanwhile, I'm ruling the state, for instance. You understand? And then I've mentioned the gender. I've mentioned the religion. Yes. What about health status?
Yeah.
You can come in there.
Let me add, another major factor is weak institutions. We can look at how local government administration are being managed in, say, Imo State, even though the case is the same across the country. You see, as I'm coming to the studio, I saw a poster that says for transparency, I think, and something accountability, vote right these candidates. And you look at how lack of transparency, transparent government has killed local government administration at that level. Because one, when we talk of inclusion, you look at, it is our fundamental right to choose our leaders at the level of local government, but governors hijack the process, weaken the institutions, our democratic institutions, and single-handedly choose who run these governments at local government level. They also use the same strategy to choose who becomes traditional ruler, who becomes my town union president. So there is absolutely, lack of inclusion, absolute lack of inclusion at governance, at grassroots
level, yes.
So you can't promise what you haven't demonstrated. You have the opportunity to tell us how transparent you can be, but you are just promising again. That is where the citizens need to understand that they have a duty. They have to engage the system, whether we like it or not. If we don't engage the system will engage us. So when someone comes out with certain promises, you have to ask, what have you done
before?
Yes, you're already there. So when we talk about how lack of inclusion or how lack of transparency, promotes exclusion, this is a typical example of it. Some people just share political position as if it's a birthright. It is not. It only happens when the institutions of democracy are so weak.
All right. Okay, if you're still listening to Ross, this is Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri, and we're here discussing important issue. And with me here are also important personalities. And then we've been discussing the topic advancing social inclusion through a transparent government. That is, how can we get at including people that are being excluded from governance through transparency? Do you know how we can do this? Then you are free to call us in and tell us. You can also go to our Facebook page, Boss Radio 98.9 FM, to drop your view or your comment or your contribution. How do we get this right? How do we get this right? Someone said that it is no longer a time to talk, but a time to do. How do we get this right in our state and in our country in general? We are also live on our YouTube page at Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri, and you're still free to call us in on our studio lines, which are 090-922-29922, or call us on 091-226-77989, or you also send us a WhatsApp message on 080-6999-2999. All right, we have a message here on Facebook from Ozo Francis Nnamani. He said he is Ozo Francis Nnamani, watching us from Amagonense in Enugu State. He said, greeting from there. Greeting to you, Ozo Nnamani. And I guess my guests are here also greeting you, right?
Very much.
Yes, well done, Ozo.
All right. So we've been discussing this topic. At least we talked about the two major terms in the topic. We've talked about inclusion, social inclusion, and we've also talked about transparency, government.
Yeah.
Okay. How is it that we are going to be? How do we know that a government is transparent?
Yeah, I think we can start by identifying a system that is not transparent.
Okay. How do we do that? I wanted to come in a little bit. In this our region, let me bring it down a bit. In this our region, they said a bird at hand is better than
1,000 in the bush.
Thank you. And now you see, persons, we need money. Every one of us, we need money.
Yes.
Now, someone is vying for a position. The person comes up to you, gives you a tip, and tells you that I am transparent. You don't even know the person. Sometimes we don't even have the record of people who are vying for positions. They'll tell you, okay, we are vying for this. I'm transparent. I'm accountable. Just vote for me. And they tip you up. And typical us, we want money. if you give us money, we'll do what you want us to do. And sometimes, our people too are of the view that no matter how, whatever they do, that the government are still going to hijack their votes or their contribution in the country. So it doesn't make any sense for them. It is just give us the money and let's do that thing you want us to do. At least let us benefit a little bit, the one we can at the moment. So now that it is this way, how then do we get it right?
We keep talking. That's why we're here. Civil society group, we keep talking. Yeah, because the people are also to be blamed. When you subject yourself to mental slavery, you can't get out of it easily. That's why when politicians come around, they can easily distribute packets of Indomie, which is even hazardous to your health. They distribute wrapper and all that. And we keep telling women and men as well, young people, do not sell your votes. Do not also sell your voice, because once you compromise, you come to that level of, like you just said, let me eat for today, tomorrow will take care of itself. I mean, it's a poor mentality. So we are trying to let people know you have a right. What is your right? Like my colleague said, Udo said, people should stand up to their rights and be able to query the campaign promises of whoever that is going to represent them. What are you going to do for us? What have you done? Show us your records. If you engage them at that level and you put them in power, I mean, government is for the people. We are running a democratic society.
So they say government for the people.
We are
government democracy.
Yes, we are actually the government. We are also the people. So if you put them there, you don't also relax. You follow them up. You have to hold them accountable because they have made 1, 2, 3 campaign promises. You follow them up. So we will not relent.
How do we do the follow up? We
will not relent.
One thing is to build citizens' capacity to do the follow-up. Every society is judged by how they treat the weakest among them. And when we talk about exclusion, people living with disability, I think this is the most difficult environment for people living with any form of disability. We need to consciously build an inclusive society. So when we demand these things from government, we should also look inwards. How inclusive are our workplaces? Especially public structures.
Facilities.
Yes, people should easily access these facilities. It's an investment we have to make consciously. How do we know, or how do we build this inclusive system we are advocating for? First of all is to identify what a system that lacks inclusion looks like, so you can begin to put in place the things that will change the course. If you have difficulty in accessing information, especially government held information that are not classified, then there is something wrong with that system. You should sit in your house and Google how much the governor, or you must say government, bought that Prado Jeep your representative is driving. Who was the contractor that supplied it? At what cost? These are the information that are supposed to be available, easily accessible. It is not just make it available, it should be easily accessible. Because what we hear from time to time is government, they will tell us, come to the office, go to the ministry, those informations are there. That's fraudulent. Because if you make it difficult for people living in villages to access this information, then you are shutting them out.
Yeah.
So if a government is not making information available, that's a corrupt government. People should be worried. If people are not encouraged to participate in decisions that directly affect their lives, that's a system that is not transparent. And when I say people are not allowed, how does government reach conclusions about which project they should cite in my community? I'm never consulted. My representative never held any town hall meetings to know what these communities need. They go ahead and implement projects. Who are the contractors? It's very important people ask these questions. When you just see projects springing up in your community and nobody consulted the community heads, nobody knows how those contractors are selected. It's a fraudulent system. So you don't need to wait until you hear somebody has, or a snake has swallowed it 6 million before you know something is wrong.
Someone in my time said that that you should be grateful that such a thing is done in the community. Has it been there before? So people like they've not seen it before. So whatever it is that is brought to them, they are good with it.
That's very dangerous.
Exactly.
You know, when people say you should be grateful,
that's
so you shouldn't ask the critical question. It's a tactics, and people should know when those red flags comes up. If anybody comes up to say you should be grateful, his predecessor didn't do anything, he's even managing to build the road, so don't ask so much questions. It is a sign that that government is not transparent, and people should be worried. And there is something they call mechanism. You just have to put that mechanism in place. If it doesn't exist, just like we talked about due process, if there are no due process on how contracts are awarded, then the citizens should be worried. If the mechanism is not there, there's what we call FOI, Freedom of Information Act. Federal government had passed it. Only 16 states have domesticated it, and here we are. Imo State is not one of them, right?
Yeah, sure.
Imola should demand that Imo State adopts FOI, because it is your right to know what government is doing on your behalf. It should be very easy for you to sit here and write the Minister of Works to say, tell me, who are the contractors handling so projects? It shouldn't take more than 1 week for government to get to feedback. But when you often hit stone walls. They will tell you only the governor can give access. It is wrong. When one single individual is enjoys exclusive right of making information available to the people, then there is something wrong with that system. So Ndimo says should begin to see how transparent their government is, especially local governments.
Is that right?
Do people really ask the budget of their local government? Nobody knows the budget of my local when nobody asks those questions. And as long as you don't ask, those people will not volunteer those informations. So it is very important people begin to engage the system. You don't need to be directly affected before you can speak up. People living with disability find it very difficult to get jobs in this society. They find it very difficult to get information. They find it very difficult to be where others are. Some of this information we are talking about can be life-changing. These opportunities exist here and there, but because maybe they are confined in a wheelchair or they can't see very well, then they lack access to this. They don't even have
access to decision-making places where decisions that affect them are taken.
In the House of Assembly, you have a subcommittee on people with disabilities,
but it's not effective.
Somebody who is held, who doesn't belong to that community,
the one that
is the one representing them.
On their behalf.
It's absurd.
That is quite absurd. All right. So, in a nutshell, we are saying you should be heard, I should be heard. We all should be included in the process of governance in our state and in Nigeria at large. So, if you are listening to me, are you included? Are you part of this government? Do you feel like they don't? My opinion is not valid. Do you feel like, oh, I'm being marginalized? Do you feel like I have something to contribute and I'm not given the platform to do that? So if you are amongst those persons, you are free to call us in and air your view. This discussion is participatory. That is, I earn you as you're listening to me. Okay, and then we are still on our Facebook, which is Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri, and also live on our YouTube page, Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri. And you can also WhatsApp us on 080-6999-2999, or you call us on 090-922-29922 or 091-226-77989. All right, in the process of this our discussion, I've noticed something. Most times people know what they want to say. Like I said earlier, people, they really want to make input, but you know that it's not possible for everyone, for instance from my village, to come out and air their view. Talk more of the society at large. Do you have platforms where people can through air their view?
Okay, I think it is the responsibility of those in power to make
big persons in power.
Yes. If you want people to be part of something, you need to make it extremely easy for them. You see why I think politicians or those in government deliberately don't want Nigerians to be part of election. They make it very difficult. You find it very difficult to register. You find it very difficult to pick your PVC. You find it very difficult to vote on election day. It is an indicator that government
is not transparent.
Don't want citizens to be part of that process. So when people find it very difficult to engage their government or to find platforms where they can, then you understand it is deliberate. Then at that point, you know it is now your responsibility to use every mechanism to enforce that right, because it's your fundamental right to choose how you are governed. That is why CSOs have continued to engage these communities. Citizen-based advocacy is actually what we're trying to do, to raise the consciousness, right, of the citizens to begin to ask critical questions. What is the government doing with your local government allocations? Ask these questions. Do you have the number of your representative at state and national legislature? You need to know. You need to call them every week. When are you going to have your first town hall meeting? We want to ask certain questions. Until citizens ask, because this is democracy. You can't send people to represent you every 4 years, then lament for the next 4 years, only to return to the polls and do the same thing. It's a vicious cycle we need to break. So how can citizens engage, begin to collaborate, begin to work together? The criminals who want to keep us down work in networks and they synergize. If you want to destroy that criminal network, you must also begin to come together. And you must not come together in anger. You must also understand there is need for peace. So when you come together, you explore peaceful means of engaging your government. It is only the last resort that citizens can engage in civil disobedience. But probably we haven't got there yet. But the politicians shouldn't push us to where we can begin to break the laws. People can be pushed to the wall. I'm not advocating for that, but when you push people to the wall, they would have no option than to fight back.
As part of corporate governance best practices, like Udo said,
right,
the best thing that must happen is to have a platform where you disclose relevant information to the people. Like he rightly said, what happens at the local government level? At the state level, what happens to the budget? We should know, people should actually know budget that is allocated for health, budget allocated for education, budget allocated for different sectors in our state. But how do we know? Like I keep mentioning market women, they are part of the citizenry. So government should provide platform. Before 2024 budget is passed, we should know about it, right?
Okay.
Major stakeholders should know about it. People that will not go should have representatives that will go on their behalf. So when they come back, they will now pass an information, like a step down information training, to say, look at what government is doing. You know, we're talking about transparency and social inclusion. So that way government is transparent, because transparency, like I hinted earlier on, is a core principle of good governance. And where it is lacking, then government is not transparent. That is why Udo has emphasized on election. Why must Nigerians struggle to get things? Oh, you must struggle to do your NIN. You will sleep at the registration center by 3 a.m. Everybody keeps struggling. Why? Because the mechanism, the system are not put in place. And a lot of people are doing jabbar and going to places where the system are in place, where you have transparent governance. Nobody is saying that any world is corruption free. But where these things happen, where you have transparent governance, you minimize corruption to at its barest minimum level. And at that point, every person is represented. I attended a program in Abuja. We have a person with disability that attended that program. He had to be carried. This is a full-fledged man. He had to be carried in his wheelchair, and he was shouting, "Please, I don't want to fall." There was no ramp. No, that place is a high-ranking hotel in Abuja. So does it mean that people should not include persons with disability? And when we talk about roundtable discussion, you hardly find them there.
Yeah.
And people that are able, so to speak, take decisions on their behalf. How does it happen? So when we talk about transparency, social inclusion, good governance, they all come together. And if we don't get it right, the people will keep suffering. Like Udo said, we must keep sensitizing the people, because information is what power. people need to understand that it is their basic right,
Right.
fundamental right to live well.
Sure.
To live well. It's not when, oh, there is a NEPA, people shouting, yay. Why are you shouting? It's your right. It's your the basic amenity that is required for a citizen to operate. That's why we have a lot of what do you call it, unemployment rising here and there, because you need stable electricity to run even a small business, SMEs. How about the hospitals? Are they well equipped? When we don't know the budget that is allocated for health, how can we now hold government accountable? It
Yeah.
is not about doctors. It is not their fault.
Even the rising insecurity has also
Good.
deepened the lack of inclusion. Women no longer actively participate in economic activities
Exactly.
because the spaces are no longer safe for them.
It is not
The
safe.
same case is, the case is the same with people, living with disabilities. So when government fail to protect and secure the environment, it leads to
became porous
further
to
exclusion of
vices.
certain people.
All right. Good evening to you.
Hey,
Good evening to you.
how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Your name and where you're calling us from.
My name is Samuel. I'm calling for water.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay.
All right. All right. Please, when you are calling us, please stay an inch away from your radio set so we could hear you properly, and then do well to articulate your points that you're going to make an input or a contribution, or even ask your question. You will have distinguished gentlemen here in the studio, so they will always answer or attend to your question. All right. One thing is to identify a problem, and the other is to find a way
Solutions.
out, that is solution. So now that we've known that we are not included, sometimes I even wonder, do you know that when I read about inclusion, I discovered that the women, the disabled, the youth, the young ones, that's the children, they are not included. Also mean that is the advanced men that are only in the political affairs.
I think if you look at it, the major portion of the pie goes to men. That is why in a political party, for instance, you will hear women wing
Yeah.
and a youth wing.
Okay.
So the main trunk is the men now,
Yeah.
Abi.
Mhm.
So it is deliberate just to give them something to keep them busy. And where women always come up, even those youths who come out to sing in bombo,
It's mobilization.
you get, yes, for political mobilization. They wear uniforms and sing the praises of the men. And it's quite unfortunate because if you look at the last age distribution of voters, the youths make up to 39.6% of total registered voters. So we are in majority, but unfortunately, because we lack the capacity to engage the system, we continue to play background role, sustaining the corrupt and a system that lacks accountability. Women and youths should appreciate the power they have in a democratic system and begin to use it in their best interest. We have complained a lot, but it is time to educate, learn and unlearn. Over time, the thing that has not worked should be discarded, and we should look forward to something that can be, reflect our collective aspirations. So what can we do first? That is what we are doing now, to educate ourselves on how to engage the system. You need to understand how the system works before you can engage it. And often government or those who have the power will like to divide you when you're uniting. So your unity first is a very strong evidence that you are beginning to realize, where the rain started beating you. And those who benefit or profit from the corrupt system will not want that. They are going to attempt to divide you. So the youths and women or anyone, people of good conscience, should understand that first people should come together and choose. Every society is judged on what they tolerate. You can't correct what you tolerate. Over time, we have tolerated the corrupt system. All we do is beg for appointments. Maybe you are appointed into a corrupt system, you are settled. You no longer complain. But it's just a matter of time. When you're out of government, you go back to complain. So people should understand that the only sustainable way to develop our society is to begin to demand. You don't even
Exactly.
beg, demand for a transparent and inclusive system. Secondly, begin to build a system. Don't wait until somebody sells hundreds of billions. Begin to build a system that reflects, the things you expect. When there is no local government election, demand for it. It is not the prerogative of the governor to decide when elections are conducted at that level. It is corruption. What we see now as a SOLAD, what do they call it? Sole administrators, right? Or caretaker. It's alien to our democracy. It's alien to our constitution. But our people have tolerated it for so long.
They have accepted it.
It is time to reject caretaker committees at local government level. It is time also to attend sittings. The House of Assembly has, a section where people can sit down and observe the proceedings. Take out time at least once a month or so to see how your representative is doing in the House. Some people sit there forever without making any contribution.
And gaining sitting allowances.
Yes. So you send them there to represent you. When you can, go to the House, go to their offices. And when you go to the office, don't demand for school fees. Demand for accountability. What are they doing with the positions they have been given?
Yeah. In addition to what Udo said, we also have to emphasize on our legal frameworks.
Yes.
Hey, that's the area I want to cut in.
We have legal frameworks. We are good at passing laws.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we are very weak at implementation. So that is also where the citizen comes in, like, very strongly, and that's part of what the civil society groups, that's part of what we do.
Yeah, that's what SAFA is doing currently.
Exactly. Because these things are written down on papers and are filed away. But most people do not also know that they have such rights.
Of course.
So we also hold government accountable by telling them this is what you have signed. Nigeria, as a matter of fact, is a state under the UN that has ratified so many laws. And they find it difficult, like what your Ude is saying on the FOI bill. Imo State is there to domesticate. So we have legal frameworks that the citizens can use. It's a tool. It's a legal tool that we can use to back up our demands. Like he said, we will no longer beg. People should also jettison this slave mentality. When you go to your lawmaker, you're begging for school fees. And then you forget that you put the person there to represent you. So you demand what the person is currently doing. Is the person just there earning sitting allowance and monthly allowance, and you are there whiling away? Why do you have your legal framework that is backing you up? So we need to query the system, the judiciary, the legislative, even the executive, because they are the people that will sign. So where are the implementation powers? So that is part of what we want to empower the citizens with.
When we talk about inclusion, social inclusion, and then you see that earlier, months ago, people came out massively. They picked their voters card. I heard people around me say they must go pick their voters card and they must vote. And then people massively came out on that day, casted their votes. And now I could just ask, what is the outcome? Could we say that we did it right? Where could we say the problem is coming from? Is it the judiciary, or that the people, the masses that were educated? We told them they have a voice. We told them they have a say. We told them that they could do something to change what is pertinent in our country. And they accepted that. They came out massively. At the end of the day, they were robbed of that right.
About mechanism. That's why we can't overemphasize this. The system is corrupt.
Yeah, and it's important to emphasize that when we say they were robbed, let's wait for court to decide if they were robbed or not.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's still a process.
Let me retract a bit. All right. So we are still discussing the way forward. We've identified all the challenges that is okay. Let's see who is calling us. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening. Am I on to Hot FM?
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay. I'm really appreciating all you people have been doing on.
Okay. Your name and where you calling us from, sir?
Sorry, my name is Mr. Zurumbonyi. I'm calling from Makoya.
All right, so go ahead, sir. Make your contribution.
I have to start by commending you guys for this sensitization program, because it's long overdue for our youth to realize the power they have in their hands. Now, I would just want to ask questions based on these lawmakers of a thing we have been talking about, holding them accountable. For instance, we all know that the last election that saw the emergence of the current House of Assembly members was more or less a kangaroo election. Now, in a situation whereby you approach such a House member representing you unquote, and they ask him to account for you, don't you think a good number of them will be bold enough to tell you after all you don't vote for them? You did not put them in that particular office. So why would you hold them accountable in such situation? How do we go about it? Even the legal framework we are talking about, we can't even rely on them. We all know what is happening in the country. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sir Ozurumba Onye, for calling us in and then asking your question and making a nice impact. All right, ma'am, to you, Mom Ogechi, what do you have to say about it? You say we're not the one that elected them, so how do we demand for transparency and accountability?
Like we keep saying, we will not relent. We will not relent. What you do is you go back to your people. That's why we have youth leadership. That's why you have women leadership. You understand? At every point in place, you have non-state actors, stakeholders. You bring them together. There's something Udo said earlier on. You don't keep pushing the people. When you push them to the wall, they must react. So it is not a one-man's business. It is not a one-man show. Assuming you approach your lawmaker and he queries you, why are you here, or he abuses you and asks you to get out, you go and form an alliance and report back to the people, and you go there. As a matter of fact, you are empowered to even remove that person from the seat. Yeah.
And sometimes what we do is not consistent with what we say. These ones, they are saying they didn't elect, will also go back to their communities and receive chieftaincy titles and receive all sorts of recognitions, go to church and receive all sorts of awards. The things we do should begin to reflect how we feel towards our politicians.
Okay. All right. Let's see if we have another person here. Hello. Good evening to you.
Good evening, my sister. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sir. Welcome to the show.
God bless you.
Your name and where you're calling us from?
Blessing, I'm on the line. I'm calling from Alban.
All right. So go ahead. Make your input.
You see, my sister, the problem in Nigeria, in fact, I was talking to someone today. It's just as if God, has forgotten us and he has just left us with our predicament. You see, the only time you see all these politicians around is during election, when they want your vote. That's where you see them. Now, the question is, where are they now? Where are they? Okay? And the judiciary that APC, the past administration killed, they are still in my system. Because when you look at what, in fact, I told someone yesterday that I don't think any good thing can come out of Nazareth of this judiciary. And to worsen it is the House member. They are rubber stamp. Now, I did not in Nigeria. I did not see what is happening now. And that's why we are praying that if it is the will of the people, some of us will not be bothered too much because we know that we voted for so person. But in a situation whereby the person ruling you is not, you don't even want him, they just force him on you, and the person is not doing well. Assuming Tinubu came in and reduced the price of petrol to 100 naira or at most 200 naira per liter, we enjoy other benefits. The road are okay, the food is sufficient, and all that, open border and all that. We will not bother. Nobody will even talk about Peter Obi or any other aspirant again. We pray that God will help us in this country. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir, for calling in. We appreciate your input and your contribution. You said we've given up.
And that's what the politicians want to hear. When they hear citizens give up, I think it certains their position that it is working. Whatever the politicians are doing that discourages people from engaging the system, it is working. If the citizens choose not to give up, then we can begin to entertain hope of having a Nigeria we all dream of. One thing is this: if you're sick because the medications you have taken over time hasn't worked, you don't just
give up.
Yes, you don't resign to your fate. So this is a time to understand that we can't give up, we can't surrender at this point. And we should look at the gains of the last election. It's not, it wasn't all about the negative. There are so many positive we can, draw strength from this last election. Something I said about how we treat the politicians that continue to treat us badly. It doesn't reflect, how poor their perception, public perception is. If a politician that is not represented very well comes to a community, he should be booed.
Yeah.
Right? If you go to a restaurant to eat, he should be booed. They don't feel like they are not performing very well. That's it. It's your right to express publicly or privately your displeasure, or disapproval of your representative's performance.
Absolutely.
So how do we begin to even force religious leaders to stop recognizing them when they come to church? Even traditional leaders to stop giving them chieftaincy title, but unfortunately it's even the governors who give them staff of office.
Exactly.
So it's a state capture. We need to rescue our society from the leprosy hands of leprotic hands of our politicians.
From mental slavery.
We need to free ourselves and begin to enforce our rights.
All right, I could say this discussion is endless, it's bottomless. If we keep discussing, this is what we're facing, so we'll never end. At this point, we are wrapping it up here, and then we thank you so much for being part of this show. For one thing, you know that you should go back and do something. It's not this time around, it's say something, know something, and do something.
Yeah.
One thing we are sharing you and from this discussion today is that your voice is valid. You can be heard. Do the right thing, follow the right channels, and then we can be included in the governance of our country. All right, thank you so much.
All thanks to
and
CICILAC and Ford Foundation with the work AFA is doing. I think our society will be better for it.
That's right.
All right, thank you so much, Mem Ogechi Ike, and then Sir Udochukwu Chukwu for being part of the show. Tomorrow, same time tomorrow, another different topic to be discussed. Till then, I remain your humble person, Ihadindeme Chidema. Good evening.